This episode is brought to you by Rev1. Rev1's mission is to help entrepreneurs build great companies. As you navigate the waters of business entrepreneurship, you don't have to go it alone. A strategic partnership with Rev1 connects innovators to the talent, customers, space, and funding you need when you need it. Get started with Rev1 Startup Studio by visiting rev1ventures.com to learn more. Again, the website is rev1ventures.com. Support for 614 Startups comes from Color Coded Labs. It's time for a better career in tech. Introducing Color Coded Labs, a 16-week boot camp that does more than just teach basic code. It's a program designed to help you actually get a career in tech. At Color Coded Labs, we've removed all the barriers to help you learn the skills you need to start a career you love in weeks, not years. All designed for people of color by people of color. Apply now at colorcodedlabs.com. 614 Startups Nation, welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. My name is Elio Harmon, your host, and there are a few guests that get me as fired up as my guest today. I'd like to welcome Gloria Ware of Get the Bag. Gloria, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm fired up about being here.
All right, Cleveland is in the house.
Cleveland 216, baby.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I follow you on social media, so I know you're all about Cleveland. Is that your hometown? Is that where you're from originally?
Yes, I am from Cleveland, originally born, raised in Cleveland, Los Angeles, and Detroit. So a little bit of Midwest and with a touch of West Coast.
Okay.
Graduated from The Ohio State University. So, and have lots of friends that have done work all across the state of Ohio. So I really claim the entire state of Ohio as my first love.
Love it. Now, Ohio is a small state, but it feels like if you're not very purposeful, you tend to kind of stay in your city. You know, you could get to Cleveland in like, sub 2 hours.
I know.
You know, we should be moving around the state a little bit more than we do. It's unfortunate that we have to, kind of have conversations long distance, but hopefully with this generation of entrepreneurs, founders, investors, we can close the gaps across the state. All right. Now, for people who don't know you, why don't you start with a bit of your personal and professional background and how you came to be the founder of Get the Bag?
Yeah, so like I said, born in Cleveland, Ohio, raised pretty much a good part of my life in Cleveland, but spent some time in other cities as well. Graduated from The Ohio State University, where I actually worked a lot of places while there, but one of my last assignments was with the Office of Black Student Programs. And through that, I was exposed to entrepreneurship as a potential, career opportunity, not just for myself, but, anyone that was interested in leveling up financially. And that's where I actually launched my very first entrepreneurial kind of program, right? So designed and conceived a program to connect the students from the Office of Black Student Programs, Ohio State University, and even individuals that lived in the surrounding neighborhood, which looked very different than the surrounding neighborhood does today, to entrepreneurship. Invited people from other resource providers from the we weren't using that word ecosystem back then, and got really excited when I received feedback that people had actually started to pursue their entrepreneurial journey. And from that, I actually worked for the state of Ohio for about 18 months, but got my banking career started at what's now JP Morgan Chase, entered their management training program. And I would just say that really that experience and the lessons learned have shaped a lot of who I am and how I think and what I do. One of the first assignments that I had as a management trainee was to run the bank's United Way campaign along with another person. So that connected me to this understanding of community and charity and social impact, right? Having that kind of exposure. Came back to Cleveland and in the 90s to work with what's now PNC Bank, and then finished up my banking career in 2010 at Fifth Third Bank. And I've served in roles from product manager, retail manager, small business banker. So I've been working with small businesses for a long time, and then a commercial lender. Left around the crisis, 2008, the downturn, was seeing a lot of things happen. And I really believe that entrepreneurship was the path back, right? The path back to seeing more jobs in the communities that were being negatively impacted by those job losses. And I wanted to work on the side of the entrepreneur, right? I was working for these large financial institutions, and I wanted to see what it was like to work for a smaller organization that was still young and work directly with entrepreneurs, and then get to work specifically with entrepreneurs of color. So started at Jumpstart 2010, always served on the inclusion team throughout the entire experience. And Jumpstart is kind of like a Rev 1. It receives funding from the Ohio Third Frontier, and it serves it serves early stage companies and invests in early stage companies in primarily upstate kind of northern Ohio. But Jumpstart has a few funds that invest across the state as well, including one that invests exclusively in women and entrepreneurs of color called the Focus Fund. And I was a part of conceiving that fund. And so that's how I came to build relationships with people and ecosystem leaders across the state of Ohio in terms of trying to promote that fund and get the word out. So I've been really working outside of Northeast Ohio, I would say at least since 2012. So your point about, how we have all of these different sub-regions and there should really be this connectivity, that's been a big goal of mine since 2012 when the Black Enterprise Conference came to Columbus. But have been doing that. The last 4 years have been serving in more of like a philanthropist role, serving as an intermediary for KeyBank, the KeyBank Foundation, which had partnered with Jumpstart to invest in workforce development and entrepreneurship programs focused on women and people of color across the state. So a lot of work done in Columbus, partnered with Perscolas, Women's Center for Economic Opportunity, a number of organizations. I have some other things that I did right before I left. And then I left in September 1st. I started my business, Get the Bag, which is about powering up and promoting Black women entrepreneurs with a focus on access to capital and then also visibility. And I started that in the fall of 2019 and decided to leave in September to grow that. And then I also have a consulting firm that I'm spending some time on as well.
All right. So, I love origin stories, right? So now we're at Get the Bag. Okay.
Yes.
So we start businesses for a wide variety of reasons.
Yes.
What was it in that September, right, where you said, you know what, I have to do this and now is the time? What was the passion? What was the mission? What was the vision behind Get the Bag?
Well, it was always my plan that when I left my last job, whatever that be, in this case, it was Jumpstart, that I was going to start a business. That was always the goal. In 2010, that was the goal, right? So I felt that, I'd been working on, building out the business, getting my branding, building, getting some traction. And just with everything happening, right, in 2021, this huge interest in entrepreneurship, the big focus on small businesses because of the impact of the pandemic, the big focus on Black-owned businesses in terms of the disproportionate impact of their businesses due to the pandemic, and even more so Black women. People were focused on women. A lot of women were the ones negatively impacted because they were either caregivers or negatively impacted from job loss or having children and trying to juggle that, right? And so it just felt, and then our partnership with KeyBank, that it ended in June. So I felt like I had done the work that I needed to do there. I was able to make some seed investments, up to $2 million in seed investments in organizations to help them to level up. And they have successfully secured follow-on funding. I kind of use that analogy in the nonprofit world and had some great programs going. And I just felt like the time was right. Right. And then things were just getting crazy, right? Trying to run a business, be involved in organizations supporting entrepreneurs, particularly in the last 2 years when there were so many challenges and pivots and turnarounds. And I think I remember you kind of having this discussion with one of your guests previous guest, you just have to make a decision that, okay, I can't keep, doing both. And so I decided that I was going to go hard on get the bag. And here we are.
Love it. So give us the elevator pitch. What is Get the Bag?
Yeah, so Get the Bag is an e-commerce platform and a community, right, that is centered around powering up and promoting Black women entrepreneurs, right? And we do that in two ways. Biggest challenge for Black women entrepreneurs is lack of access to capital, whether it's financial capital or social capital. So we provide opportunities for them to get information about accessing a wide spectrum of capital, not just venture capital, right? And then we provide content and a curriculum to help them to do that successfully. And then we also provide opportunity for them to get the visibility. Since they don't have capital, we don't have marketing dollars, right? To get the visibility that they need, particularly at a time when people are very interested in buying and supporting Black-owned businesses, right? To get the visibility that they need. And we do that by featuring their stories on our website, but also curating brands, Black women-owned brands, and helping people that are interested in supporting these businesses or supporting Black-owned business or wanting to buy more Black-owned products to discover them. So we provide a way of helping you to save time, but discover cool, amazing brands that you can continue to support. Many of these brands you can purchase, at Target or, Walmart or Ulta, a number of Nordstroms. So that is the goal. When I say powering up, it means financially, giving them the power that they need to grow and scale, and then promoting, making sure that they're visible, because as Black women, a lot of times we do feel like we're invisible. And so that was those are very intentional words that I chose to make sure that people do see us and see our amazing products and the gifts that we have to bring, and have no excuses for supporting us and taking advantage of these amazing products and services.
All right, now I don't even know quite how to ask this question. It's going to be kind of an asymmetric question for business podcasts, but I think you're rightly positioned to help me understand this, right?
Okay.
Because in the past, what tend to happen in the wake of racial unrest in this country is some kind of political solution, right? So you had the civil rights movement, and out of that came voting rights and the Civil Rights Act, et cetera, right? There have been other incidents like in the early 90s with Rodney King, where there was a riot, but really no kind of like resolution, right? We understood that these issues existed around police brutality and communities of color, et cetera. But it felt like in 2020, a new kind of idea emerged, which was, hey, why don't we shift to more of an economic focus in the wake of these? Because these problems are not just political or social, they're also economic. Right? Absolutely. How does this new movement into an economic type of civil rights really impact how you approach these businesses? And do you truly think that people, when they hear, hey, we want to support Black businesses, hear your heart or what you are intending to do versus, oh no, this is just somebody who's playing the race card? How do you deal with those kind of conversations as you're out building your business?
Yeah, well, I do want to say this notion of focusing on economics is a very old notion. It's new to many of us, right? There's a great book, several great books, but one in particular that I recommend that everyone reads, and it's called The Color of Money. And it's the history of U.S. Black banks and the Black wealth gap. And when I was reading it, it was almost like, whoa, we're thinking we're doing something new, but people have been working on this issue of economic freedom through entrepreneurship since Reconstruction, right? Even prior to that, right? But definitely that was one of the first things that formerly enslaved people said, hey, we need to, and they didn't really have any other choice but to buy Black, right? Because they were still very restricted in their movements and have been really up until the Civil Rights movement. So it's not new. Right. There's just been a lot of deterrence and distractions over that time. I think we all have been familiar with the story of Tulsa.
It's not new, but what it felt like, it was like a groundswell. You could
Yeah.
feel it. It was different
Yeah.
this time around, right?
Yeah.
Everybody started something.
I would say, yeah, maybe more
Everybody
people. Yes.
made
Yeah.
commitments. Everybody.
Yes.
Now there was a
Yes.
financial,
Yes. Yes.
people were willing to commit dollars,
Yes,
right?
I
They
agree.
would say X number of dollars towards,
Yeah.
spending with minority businesses. And I think that was really a difference, don't you think?
Yeah. More people came to the table. More
Right.
corporations were visible and open with their declarations and commitments. So I definitely agree with that. And I think as it relates to kind of people, wondering like, hey, is this just someone trying to co-opt this moment, right? And this is where, I always talk to young professionals about your reputation, right? It's very important to build a solid reputation, to be authentic and credible. And that's how I've moved my entire career. And it's been something, again, like I said, I've been doing this work since I was an undergrad at The Ohio State University, right? Promoting Black-owned business and Black entrepreneurship. So it's a consistent theme. As a banker, I did access to capital workshops. I worked on these initiatives, in the last 10 years in the venture development space. And I've actually funded entrepreneurial support programs. So I think it was just very natural for me when people learn what I'm doing to say, oh, of course, that's what you're doing, Gloria, right? And I've always, even before this moment, myself tried to spend more dollars with Black and diverse owned businesses, been very intentional about that. And so I understand the challenges of like the time that it takes to try to find them and then, vet certain businesses. So I do understand that it takes time to do that. And a lot of people just wind up defaulting to, going to the big A, to Amazon, right? And so I've actually had a lot of corporations unexpectedly. This wasn't one of my target markets, right? Corporations or people from nonprofit entities and businesses find me, right? And they were super excited about, wow, not only can we just support, one Black-owned business or like try to find all these different Black-owned businesses to support, we can, and it's usually on the corporate gifting side, but you have curated several in a box, right? So our employees, our team members, our fellows, our conference attendees, our speakers can be exposed to these amazing, and I'm very particular about how I curate the products, right? These amazing brands. And so that's wonderful because now it scales the number of people that are exposed to these brands. These are corporate executives, CEOs, decision makers that are being exposed to these brands. And my goal is one of the ways that I feel that buying and supporting a Black-owned business and the brands that we feature can help them to get the bag is it increases their revenue, right? And as a banker, as a venture capitalist, as a organization evaluating business grantees, you look at that revenue and you look at the revenue trends. Black women-owned businesses have an average revenue in this country of $24,000. That's revenue where you haven't even talked about expenses yet, compared to a white woman-owned business average revenue of $174,000. So I felt that if we can, number one, in addition to providing information and resources to people to understand the process behind securing funding and the when, the where, and the how, by curating these products, it's like my own supplier diversity program, I'm actually making a direct impact in helping them to be well positioned to secure funding and then leveraging that by introducing more people to it. So helping them to scale their revenues even faster.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Yeah. When I got the information, I checked out the website, it just made sense to me why a small business who's looking to gain exposure, gain experience, and be partnered with a company that's growing rapidly would want to be involved with Get the Bag. But we've laid the premise, but we got to take a break, pay some bills. We'll be right back. And we're going to talk about social impact buying.
Yes.
Right? And so we'll be right back with my conversation with Gloria Ware of Get the Bag. Support for the 614 Startups podcast comes from Book and Street. Book and Street provides finance and accounting solutions for startups in the Midwest and beyond. From strategic financial support to bookkeeping and everything in between, they've got your back office covered. Let their experienced team of finance and accounting professionals help your startup get it right from the start. Learn more at bookandandstreet.com and set up your free 30-minute consultation with their team today. Support for 614 Startups comes from the law firm of Dickinson Wright, with around 500 attorneys working from 19 offices across the U.S. and Canada. They handle all types of business transactional law, including advising privately held and venture capital-backed companies in capital raising, mergers and acquisition, and transactions involving technology, software, data, and e-commerce. Partner Alex Brown serves as outside counsel to startup companies ranging from business entity selection and formation, protection and commercialization of technology assets, conducting business online, and data security issues. For more information, visit dickinsonwright.com.
All right, we are back. All right, that commercial break felt a little bit too long. We want to continue this conversation, Gloria. Let's jump right back into it. Let's talk about social impact buying. What is it?
Yeah, social impact buying is basically recognizing that you as a consumer can change the world. You can make an impact with your purchases. Corporations do pay attention to consumer sentiment and consumer trends. And so it's about buying to make a difference in their world. A good example would be buying from companies that are not having a negative impact on the environment, buying from companies where maybe the employees are returning citizens, buying from companies that have great policies around LGBTQ or support Black-owned businesses. So that is social impact buying.
So do you feel, I'm reading a book right now, which is like the Relentless, I can't even remember the title, I'm in such a hurry, but it's supposed to help me slow down, right? Which is like the Relentless Elimination of Hurry.
Is it Essentialism?
I've listened to Essentialism on audiobook.
Okay.
But social impact buying takes thought. Like you have to stop. And in a world that doesn't stop, we tend to pursue convenience. You mentioned a company name that thrives on that convenience factor in our life, where we're making purchases without actually thinking. How does a company like Get the Bag help us as consumers slow down and think about our purchases and be more purposeful?
Well, I think number one, Generation Z and even millennials are changing the trajectory of maybe some of those tendencies, right? So 72% of millennial parents are more likely to be loyal to a brand that shares its efforts on being environmentally responsible. 64% of millennials are willing to pay more for sustainable products. And 52%, and this is from a 2021 Consumer Intel report, and a lot of this is driven by kind of what's happened over the last couple of years. 52% of respondents said it's important for them to buy from companies whose values match theirs, and that's up from 43% in 2019. So people are already, I think, because the pandemic forced us to slow down, in the same way we're seeing this great resignation of people having time to rethink, like, well, why am I working here? What am I doing with my life? And they've watched how companies have behaved during the pandemic. That definitely is changing. So there is, and then Gen Z is all about values. One of the, I love following the business of fashion, and they do a lot of, you've got these luxury brands that are paying attention to what's happening. They do a lot of reporting on Gen Z, and Gen Z is very particular, and they will even go above and beyond kind of what's on the website to truly vet, okay, is this true? Okay, you have carbon offsets, but what does that mean? Let me go a little deeper. And if you'll start to notice that companies are now starting to offer the proof behind the statements on their website in recognition that there's a new generation that's very cynical and digging deeper. So I think that is changing. And I think one of the things too is bringing faces to these brands, right? And so that's why I just added last month a section on my website where I'm going to be featuring the stories of these business owners, right? Just to give people more of an emotional connection. And there's a lot more that I wanted to do with that. But I think it's already happening, to answer your question. And I do think it's about telling the stories of these brands. And once people experience, you know, the difference, they're going to want to, in the same way that people pay more for, you know, fine coffee, they're going to want to pay more and take time out to curate brands that meet their values.
Yeah, I mean, so, okay, let's think about thriving Black brands that have emerged over the last 10 years. So if you're super into hip hop, you know about Kanye's brand Yeezy, his partnership with Adidas. Or if you're on the direct consumer side, on the female end, you know, Rihanna has basically minted
that's my girl.
With Fenty. So we know these thriving brands that have emerged in the direct to consumer space, but I want to chat with you about some of the stories that you're curating through Get the Bag. What are some brands? I know they're all like your kids. You all love them equally. All right. So I'm asking this tongue in cheek. Don't want to get you in trouble with anybody you don't mention. You love them all, guys. Don't call Gloria getting on her because she didn't mention you. Okay. But what are some brands that you're curating that you're very excited about?
Yeah, so one, there are two brands in particular, and they are both Haitian Americans, Haitian Black women from Haiti, and they are social enterprises, right? So they kind of meet the you know, fair labor requirements. They're environmentally responsible, and their goal is to rebuild Haiti, right? Through entrepreneurship, social enterprise, giving people opportunities to learn about businesses, to work in a way where there's fair labor practices and work and build up the land of Haiti. And I love those because we've all been reading the stories about what's been happening in Haiti. One of them lost several members of her family in that earthquake from, you know, several years back. And unfortunately, one of them is the grad from that school up north. I love what I do. I remember when we started reading the news about like the latest round of dissension that's happening in Haiti. And they said the best thing to do is to continue to buy and support our brand so that we can make sure that these people have jobs, have security. And I think we all may have remembered too what happened to a lot of those funds that we donated, right, to various organizations in Haiti. And the people are still trying to figure out what happened to the money. Right. So those are two brands. So that's Caribou Coffee, and Caribou Coffee actually was secured one of Beyonce's grants, one of Beyonce's Bay Good grants. And she's expanded to a number of beverages. She's been taking advantage of a number of accelerators and growing her business and thriving. And then the other is Ascania Chocolates, and another business that's growing and thriving. Another brand that I love is Partake Cookies. So Partake Cookies was created Jay-Z back, so received capital through one of Jay-Z's venture funds. But it was a mother who had a daughter who had a lot of allergies, right? And her daughter couldn't enjoy a lot of foods as a result from that. So she went to the kitchen and said, darn it, my daughter is going to be able to enjoy some cookies and some snacks if I have to create it myself. And sure enough, she did. And these are allergy-free, gluten-free. That's the other thing I love about these brands is not only they all have, just in terms of their stories or their mission, they're just automatically social impact, right? They're not trying to do it as part of a hook. But created this brand of cookies. They're delicious. They come in lots of flavors. They now have baking mixes, and created this brand out of just, you know, love for her daughter. And they're sold in stores, you know, Target, Whole Foods, stores all across the country. The other one is a brand called Pipcorn, another brand that you can find increasingly in more retail establishments. And they focus on creating snacks made out of corn, but corn that's not GMO. And they're very focused on using environmentally friendly practices, and have done quite well. They started out with, I think they started out with maybe popcorn, but they've expanded to a whole they have snacks, they have crackers. And so it's been interesting since I started doing this curation in 2019 to see these brands grow and expand their product lines. And those are, food business, those are high, they can be high margin, right? If you do it right.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's say everything, I have a great story. I have a great product. Here's where I feel like you put your consultant hat on as you engage with these brands, right? Because one of the things that you learn quite quickly is that there's a strategy to all of this, right? Being an entrepreneur takes experience, and sometimes that experience comes from making mistakes. How do you really work with these business owners when they come to you, putting your consultant hat and really talking through, okay, well, what's your business model here? How are you pricing these products? Well, what's your real profit margin? Because some of that kind of feeds into my next question, which is Black female, women of color, business owners struggle with financing. That's often because even though they might have the customers, the numbers just don't add up. How do you approach working with the folks that you that participate and get the bag?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I want to do more of in 2022. Now that I'm able to work full time, is build out a curriculum, right? And thinking about the groups of people. I've got e-commerce businesses, I have food and beverage, I've got beauty and wellness. So a lot of professional services, not necessarily that they're my client, that I'm their client. I would like to add more professional services to kind of this curated group. But so in the ways that I have been able to kind of coach these entrepreneurs, and some of like one of them is a Dartmouth MBA, right? So she's worked on Wall Street, right? So some of them, they have corporate backgrounds, and even though they might be running a food-based business or a health and beauty-based business, very strong, right? Very strong skills and background. But others, I would basically just connect them to, maybe give feedback on the product and presentation, connecting them to finance sources, to funding sources. That's probably the thing that I do that has the greatest impact. And then sharing just through the content, a lot of the content that I provide in my newsletters, also through the subscription, people that subscribe, sharing information about just kind of the fundamentals of funding, right? Because I've been blessed that I've had banking experience, right? I've worked with small businesses. I've worked with middle market size businesses. I've funded cities and counties and colleges and universities. I've worked on the philanthropy side. I've worked on the venture capital side. But there's like 6 fundamental practices, regardless of where you're getting funded, that apply to all of those disciplines, right? So that is what I really want to communicate to people, is those 6 fundamental practices, and do more work around that. One example would be, okay, if you're an e-commerce business of a certain size, what should your margins be?
Hang on. That's going to be our teaser for our next segment. Okay. The 6 fundamentals. All right. Now, you're going to have to register for Get the Bag to get the full story, but she's going to give us a preview of the 6 fundamentals. When we come back, I'll be right back to continue my conversation with Gloria Ware of Get the Bag.
Okay. Support for the 614 Startups podcast comes from Bernstein Private Wealth Management's Columbus-based team of professional advisors. In a world where most investment managers look alike, Bernstein Private Wealth Management has evolved into an organization like no other. Some money managers look to add value after a business is sold, but Bernstein delivers proactive advice right from the start. Whether you're eyeing the exit or you've just launched, Bernstein is committed to your financial success. If you're interested in partnering with Bernstein on your entrepreneurial journey, visit bernstein.com to learn more. Again, that website is bernstein.com to learn more. Bernstein, fully invested in better outcomes. Support for the 614 Startups podcast comes from Nationwide. Nationwide's mission is to protect people, businesses, and futures with extraordinary care. To help fulfill that mission, Nationwide is looking to invest its $350 million venture capital investment fund in insurtechs that will help them create new and exciting products and solutions to meet the needs of their customers. If you're interested in partnering with Nationwide's venture capital team, visit nationwideventures.com to learn more. Again, the website is nationwideventures.com. Nationwide is on your side.
I am back to continue my conversation with Gloria Ware of Get the Bag. All right, I am on edge right now. We're going to talk not about all 6 fundamentals, but about, like kind of 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, if you want to stretch it, that are like your absolute, like you got to get this right. You just got to get this right. So what are some of those fundamentals?
First big one, and I know we're all so tired of hearing this word, mindset, but it's so important, right? Because it's hard being an entrepreneur and it's really hard raising capital, right? So, and people want to.
And it's not just your skin color. It's hard for everybody.
It's hard for everyone, right?
Okay, all right.
And skin color and gender does add an additional layer of difficulty.
I know, but the baseline is hard.
It's hard, right?
Yes.
And so, but it's important for you to just recognize that and know that it's about getting up and getting back and moving forward, learning from your mistakes, but being confident. And I would say for a lot of people, and particularly women and people of color, sometimes the confident factor shows up in a way in terms of how much money we ask for, right? How big we think our business could be, right? So it's about having a big vision for your, not being afraid to have a big vision for your company, and knowing that with the right team and the right resources, you can map out a plan to get there, right? And the money, right? Big vision means big money. And so it's doable. You can make it happen, just need the right team, right plan, but you have to have that mindset of thinking big. You can do it, being positive. So that's a big one.
All right. So how do you get somebody like let's say they're not there, right? What are is it something that you're like, listen, you're gonna have to get there on your own. I can't drag you all the way to success, right? How do you deal with that? Or how do you balance the two, right? Because it's natural. This is my first time doing this. You're not always you're gonna fail and bounce back and all that. How are you talking through that with the people that you consult with?
I expose them to people that were in a similar situation, or that they feel are like them. Oh, I can relate to that person. We have the same story, or they right. And by hearing, right, this is the lesson that I've learned in doing this work professionally. When people see people that look like them and that have had somewhat shared experiences, they can then relate to that. Wow, I can do that. Like, right? It's like, oh, you did that? I can do it. So it's about this visibility, and this is where the visibility and exposure to hearing from and seeing other people talk through their hurdles, talk through their successes, talk through how, they were grinding for 5 years, and then all of a sudden they got that big call from the Fortune 500 company that just put them on a different level. And I think you talked about this in, you gave an example of your story with your podcast, right? Someone had been watching you for 3 years.
Yes.
Listen,
Gloria, listen, you're a real listener. We have a real listener here, folks. She's referencing stories from.
True to this.
Yeah, I like that. All right. I'm flattered.
Right? So they just need to hear it, because that's how it works, right? I remember I didn't hear about Shopify until maybe I started hearing about Shopify like in 2017. And I thought it was new, right? And it kind of seems new because it started to be on people's radar, right, in the last 4 or 5 years. I went back somewhere and found out that Shopify has been around for at least 15 years. Like, right? So for me, it's like, if things are slow, if things aren't really happening the way, I need to see that and know that, because then it gives me encouragement to keep working it. Right. And so just knowing those stories, and this is where the social network people, having the right type of people around to tell you, oh no, it took me 10 years, right? Like, and then like things just blew up. Or no, it can be done. This is how you do it. So the mindset. Or
it blew up. I blew the money. And then I had to come back around.
Well, there's that too. Not everyone can say that, but there's also that, like, okay, somebody can blow money and then come back and do this again. Or get on someone else's team. So that's how it's really about that. That's where the social capital is really important, whether it's somebody that you hear from because of they're hearing of their story on the podcast, or you engage with them in a IG live chat. So I do a lot of IG live chats with other Black women entrepreneurs, and I'm going to start bringing funders on, or just reading their stories or eating their product, right? And then just hearing the stories behind it. So mindset.
Yeah, mindset number one. What's number two?
Relationships. And a lot of these are like, they're just like life things, right? But this is like relationships matter, right? And so you want to start building critical relationships with prospective funders, prospective customers, prospective partners before you really even need the relationship. We need the money, need the insights, need the partnership, because it's about relationships help you to build trust. Relationships help you to get information that you get over time as trust starts to become, as you start to form this bond. And so I always tell people, look, if you need money now, you're trying to get venture capital now, this is not, you're too late. Like you should have been working on, and again, people don't know, but it might take you, even if you have an in 6 months to get to a term sheet. Right? If everything is, if you're ready right now, right? It might take, 2020 for some companies, it was a little different because a lot of money was being invested. Even in the bank, right? Oh gosh, it might take you 6 months to get a no, like a solid no. I'm sorry, we've looked it off. No, we can't do it, right? But if you take time in building the relationships and getting to know people and having them get to know you. And this is even outside of the business context, right? Like golf, that's where everything happens, is right? I remember I used to be working hard at my desk when I was in banking, and then realizing, whoa, all of the activity, everything was happening on the golf course. So even outside of those professional relationships, invite people, to an event, invite people to a charity event, invite them over to your house, or, invite them to the cookout. So that's really critical, is to know that and even relationships, you don't even have to physically be there. Invite them to your workshop, to your webinar, add them to your newsletter to keep people informed as to what you're doing. I've seen people, Dawn Dixon of Popcom, she kills at this, right? And I've seen where she used that newsletter to turn no's or maybes into yeses. Right.
And it was authentically Dawn. Like, just because it worked for Dawn does not necessarily mean it's going to work for you, because her strategies are so Dawn. Like, everything she does is so her. Being true to yourself is also a big part of this, because people could smell it, right? They could smell the authenticity. They know if you're building the relationship with some ulterior motive, or if you really want to sew into them. So that's an important part. All right, we're not going to give them all 6. Right? They're going to have to email you, get on the newsletter, pay their dues like everybody else to get all these fundamentals. All right. So what's next for Get the Bag? I mean, if I'm a potential, what do you refer to them as? Sellers, business owners? What do you
partners?
Partners. If I'm a partner and I want to get a hold of you, I'm a funder, I want to get a hold of you. How do we go about that?
Yeah, so you can there's a contact form on my website. You can just complete the contact form, or you can reach out to me at info@getthebag.biz. And I have a lot planned for 2022. Definitely going to be focusing more on curriculum to get to this point. Get the Bag actually started out as a book, like a handbook, right? And so I thought it might be more engaging and more fun to do it in a kind of more interactive, hands-on way. But definitely, so there is a foundation and a framework for curriculum. So more of the hows and the whys. And then definitely want to build out the corporate gifting piece, because as I think about that wasn't really what I was trying to do, really kind of wanted to have more of a relationship with the business owners. But I think about, wow, getting these brands being visible among these decision makers and their employees, that can significantly scale the impact that I'm trying to make. And then I would also love to have some partners, anybody that would be interested in providing grant funding. So I'd like to start a business grant initiative And then I'm really excited about the metaverse, NFTs, cryptocurrencies. So I am going to be getting our Get the Bag community more informed and more engaged in that, because there's literally like a whole new world of opportunity, including funding opportunities that could be made possible through that participation, and we just cannot afford to not be there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Gloria, thank you so much for coming on the show. I don't even want to start on the crypto thing because that'll be another podcast, but thank you so much for coming on.
My
and
pleasure.
The one thing that you said, you said a lot here that really sticks out to me. And another thing for entrepreneurs, don't disqualify yourself. Don't disqualify yourself. Gloria just told you a way that you can get a hold of her right now. If you have an idea, you're building something, you're on the fence about it, you've already launched and you're struggling, don't disqualify yourself. Reach out to Gloria. The one thing I love about being an Ohio entrepreneur is that we're so down to earth. When somebody reaches out to you, you're going to connect with them. You're going to figure it out. You're going to make it work. So reach out to Gloria, flood her inbox, y'all. Yes. Send her your ideas, your company, engage with her.
Follow me on IG at Get the Bag Boss.
Follow her on all social medias, engage with her, be a part of the Get the Bag community. If you know a funder in your life who has grant money, right? That's another thing. Like, people who can access grant money don't always know how to deploy it. Send them over to Gloria at Get the Bag. She can help that money do the work. All right, Gloria, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Elio.
Thank you guys for joining us on another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. Until next time, peace.